All right, it is 2 o'clock. We're going to go, well, 2 o'clock Central Standard Time, 12 o'clock Pacific Time, and 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We're on a bunch of different time zones here, but we are excited to welcome you to our first conversations with NEOCA, the National Educational Opportunity Centers Association. And here to get us started with our best practice conversational piece today is our NEOCA president.
Thank you, Lee. Welcome, and thanks everyone for joining us this afternoon on behalf of the Executive Board of the NEOCA. We have several presentations for you this afternoon that are planned. If you have an idea or something you would like to present, please send that to Lee Williams. His email will be listed later on. I'd be missed if I didn't mention to the whole group that we do have a scholarship that is going to be available under our organization due on May 29th. More information on the website. Again, thank you for joining us, and please join us again on May 21st. And Lee, please take it away with your leadership, Lee. Thank you.
We're having two conversations. In this one conversation, we kind of broke it out. We thought that it was very important for us to kind of go over recruitment strategies and recruitment information for recruiting people into our programs. We know that we may not have to do the full number of people that we originally were expected to do based off of what our GAN said at the beginning of the year, but we know that we are still going to have to recruit during this difficult time. And so we're going to do several presentations today. The first presentation is going to be what we're kind of calling a MasterClass. And so it's going to be digital communications during COVID. And so our design and creative services coordinator at Texarkana College, who just does a wonderful job with like social media, design work, all of those kind of platforms, text messaging, all of that, she's going to do about a 15-minute to 20-minute presentation. We're then going to open up the floor for questions that you may have for Tracy, and nothing's really off limits. You know, if you want to ask her about how she does pricing for, for the Facebook ads that she does, all those kind of things are questions that you'll want to ask her. You know, you may have geofencing questions, just whatever you have about social media platforming, messaging, all of that kind of stuff. Please make sure to put those in the comments and we'll start reading through those. We'll then let Tracy go on because I know she has a lot of stuff going on. And then we're going to do two forms of what we're calling a chat and chew. We're going to talk about how to pull data from your SIS that may assist you in this whole entire process. And then we're also going to do a presentation on another different way that we can kind of all connect collectively as part of the EOC program. So those are kind of going to be what we're going to do. After those last two chat and chews, we're then going to open the floor up again for all of us to kind of have a round robin in terms of information that we may want to cover. So nothing is off limits for these conversations that we want to discuss. The only thing that we ask is that you do mute yourself until it's time for you to talk. And then if you do have something to say, just press the unmute button and then mute yourself back. That's going to be the easiest way we're going to do this. And if you don't feel comfortable about talking at all, you can also put stuff in the conversation, in the comments. We'll be reading those comments and we'll be able to also respond to your questions that way. So we're looking forward to this. I think that's everything in terms of housekeeping. Without any further ado, I'm excited to introduce you to Tracy Pittman, who is going to kind of give us some digital communications strategies for us to use during COVID. Tracy.
Hello. Can you hear me okay?
Hey, how's it going? Good.
Good.
Okay.
We'll get started then. So I'm going to talk a little bit about digital communication during COVID-19. And this is going to cover some things that you may be doing some or all of these things already. And they're all things that we should probably be doing no matter whether there's a pandemic going on or not. But just a few tips for kind of how to navigate this. I'm Tracy Pittman. As Lee said, I'm the Design and Creative Services Coordinator for Texarkana College. I also am the co-owner of a digital marketing agency in Texarkana called For All Brainkind. So this is kind of an obvious thing, but people are spending more time online than they have ever before. They're working online, their classes are online, they're connecting with people online, they're meeting online like we are today. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're using a computer. In fact, an increasing number of people report that their only access to the internet is through a mobile device. So they may not have a laptop at home or an iPad or broadband internet. but most of them have a mobile device and they're using it to access things online. So that means that whatever they have, as long as they have that mobile device or some kind of online access, they are reachable in some way. So I'm going to talk over just a few of the ways that you can connect with your students and your recruits online. Social media, texting, chatbots, and email. Lee did mention geofencing. I don't have that covered in this presentation, but that's a whole other fun thing to talk about. I'm happy to answer questions about that during the comments. The rule of thumb for these things, though, is don't just pick one thing. You know, you hear redundant as a bad word a lot of times, but when it comes to communicating, especially when things like this are happening in the world, be redundant. Make sure your message is consistent and share it everywhere that you can, as many times as you can, on as many platforms as you can, especially your website. It's incredibly important to make sure that your website reflects the same messaging that you're putting out on all other channels and that you kind of have a united front. So if you have multiple people who are managing different parts of your communication, maybe someone's emailing, someone's texting, someone's talking to students on the phone, somebody's updating the website, just make sure that they're all on the same page and they're all saying the same things. But whatever message that you're using or whatever medium, make sure that you are compassionate. Make sure that your messaging feels personal. We all know that people are dealing with a lot of really heavy stuff right now. Some of us are dealing with heavy stuff right now. People are losing their jobs. They're missing out on these important milestones in their lives right now. They might be struggling to feed their families. And stuff that seemed appropriate in February might not seem very appropriate to share now, might seem callous. For example, at TC, we just hired a videographer and developed a new video campaign that we were super excited to roll out in mid-March. But we had to put the brakes on that because the videos are super upbeat and just very positive, and not that we don't need to be positive right now, but it just seemed like it could be callous, like we're not paying attention to the fact that there are people out there who are struggling. So we actually put a pause on that and had our videographer use the same footage but cut something that felt a lot more appropriate and serious and empathetic. And so that's what we've been using for our current marketing. So when you look at social media, a lot of people ask, you know, what networks do I need to be on? Do I need to be on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn and TikTok and Pinterest and everything that everybody's using? And I would say if you have a marketing and communications department that you could ask if they have done a student media usage survey within the past year or so. So this can tell you what platforms students are using, what social networks they're on. We do these at TC, and it's great for us because we can see actual data on what our students use and how often they use it. I go to conferences all the time, and I hear presenters stand up and say, nobody uses Facebook anymore. Everybody's left Facebook. They're all on Instagram. And while that might be true for one of your colleges, at TC, you know, when we look at our data, the students are still on Facebook multiple times a day. So that's still a great place for us to share information. We also learned that the majority of our students are using YouTube, and they're using it for searches, for music, to watch TV, you name it, they're on there multiple times per day. So that kind of a survey can really tell you where you need to be, where you should be spending your time. This also helps me decide where to spend my digital ad budget, because I could spend an infinite amount of money on digital ads if they would let me, but we just don't have an infinite budget, obviously. So this kind of helps you decide what networks are worth your ad budget and worth your time. So I have manager expectations. Each platform has an algorithm that decides what your users see and when they see it, and that can limit your post reach. So for example, on Facebook, unless you spend money on digital advertising, it's pretty safe to assume that most of the people who like your page probably aren't going to see your post. Depends on who you ask. Between 7 and 14% are numbers I've heard thrown out there of the people who like your page are actually going to see a post. And so when we pull up the Facebook newsfeed, we come back to it over and over for content that we're interested in. For most of us, that means things that our friends and our family are posting. We don't sit down on the couch and say, I'm going to pull up Facebook and see what my favorite brands are saying right now. So what that means for us as college communicators is not to abandon social media as a messaging platform, just to optimize our posts to make them as friendly and as engaging as they can. You should never post text on its own. And these may be things that you're already doing, and if you are, that's great. You should always use a photo with your post whenever possible. Photos outperform text-only posts by a landslide. When you can use videos, and these don't have to be polished, slick production type. So what I was saying is your videos don't have to be slick or fancy or thousands of dollar productions. We've had some really great heartfelt videos that we've created with just people filming themselves on their cell phones, and we're cutting it together and kind of getting it out there. So whenever you can, use video. And if you are using video and photos of students or employees who have a large social media following, tag them. That's going to make you more likely to show up on more news feeds. So all of these things are likely to help make your posts more successful. If you have a budget, even if your budget's only $20, you might want to consider paid advertising on social media. And that's a whole other ballgame. There are all kinds of really awesome, some people think it's creepy, some of the targeting that you can do on social media advertising, but it's a great way to make sure that your message is reaching the right people and that it's not getting lost in these algorithms. Another thing I wanted to make sure and point out that I get a lot of questions about is Facebook pages versus Facebook groups. So as many of you probably have a Facebook page already, most of you, I would say, they are good for mass messaging. And like I said, those Facebook page posts don't necessarily show up on everybody's news feeds whenever you post. You hope they do, but they don't always. Those posts are also public, and they can be viewed and shared by anyone. And Facebook groups, and I'm a member of multiple Facebook groups, and I love them. They provide a much more personal communication to specific people. When you create a group, you can also implement privacy settings and moderation features that mean that if you don't want, if you want to offer free donuts to your students and you want them to show up, obviously not right now during closures, but show up and get a free donut or a free t-shirt, you can make sure that post isn't public and it can't be shared so you don't get overwhelmed. So they're really good for privacy and moderation. And you're more likely to see that post in your newsfeed. If you're a member of a group and you're active in the group, you're way more likely, the algorithm is way more likely to deliver that post to your newsfeed. Texting is a great way to communicate with students. I know that I will read a text from an unknown number in a heartbeat, but if a number I don't recognize calls me, I'm either not going to answer it, or I'm going to Google the number and see, oh, it's my dentist I should pick up, because I just don't want to talk to numbers that I don't recognize. So a lot of colleges have mass texting systems. We do at TC. We have rave alerts. And so it depends on the college as far as what the policy is on using that system. Some colleges say we only want to use our mass system for, super emergencies. There's a tornado coming for you. There's an active situation on campus, that kind of thing. But at some colleges, they use these mass systems for announcements. And we do at TC, like registration is open, that kind of thing. And that's great. But one of the benefits of texting is when you can make that one-on-one connection with a student. They're also more likely to respond if they feel like it's personal and not just a mass text. They're also more likely to respond and let you know that you have a wrong number, or if their plans have changed and they have decided not to come to college or come to this particular college. It just, that when they feel like they're talking to a human being, they reveal a lot more information. It's a lot easier to ignore the mass text than to ignore a human being. So there are some platforms out there that can allow you to text people from something other than your personal cell phone, because when you start trying to use your personal cell phone for work purposes, things get kind of muddy. There are some paid platforms that give you more capabilities, and there are some free platforms. Put these here. I have not used Google Messages or Text-Free, but they are cost-free platforms that you can try to create numbers and be able to text people from a web, from a web browser. What we use at TC, or what we've been using for the past probably, not quite the past year, is Sales Message. This is what it looks like. I blurred out some names, so it looks a little creepy. But Sales Message is a platform that's pretty reasonably priced. It has an app, and this is just the browser version where I just opened it up in my browser. It integrates with our CRM. We're using HubSpot, and it allows our recruiters to manage these one-on-one conversations and have a record there of those and maintain those personal connections. They can also open up our CRM, pull up a student's account, look at it, and if they want to, they can send a text right from there. So it's a really great personal tool that you can use. Chatbots. We actually tried to launch a chatbot around peak fall enrollment time last year, and it quickly became obvious that we could not handle the chatbot because we had a small group of people who were they were responding to chats, but they also had jobs like all of us do. So they would all get busy and the chats would go unanswered. But the thing about chatbots is, if you don't already have one, it's just a great avenue of communication to consider. A lot of people who won't pick up the phone will open up a chat and tell you their problems in a heartbeat. So there are tons of platforms out there. We relaunched our chatbot, and the different thing that we have done this time around is have a person who's responsible for routing the chats to the right place. So Catherine Haley there is our chatbot queen, and she manages every chat that comes in. There's an away message whenever she's not there, and if she doesn't know an answer or she can't get it easily, she has a team of people who know, hey, you could get a chat, and at any time, keep an eye on your email just in case it pops up. The thing about chatbots is if it's everybody's job, it's nobody's job. So having that one person who can handle the chats has been awesome for us. And we relaunched it just during our closure, just to give students another way to communicate with us. This is actually a screenshot from HubSpot's chatbot. We have the paid version of HubSpot, but there is a free version and a free version of the chatbot. So if you're curious about that, I encourage you to check it out because they're pretty cool. And email, we all get too many emails. I know that I do. I've got a couple thousand in my personal email inbox that I just don't have the heart to even go through. But we do pay attention whenever the emails are relevant to us. So I ignore most of them, but if I see something coming in from the college where I went to grad school or from Kate Spade with a great sale, I'm more likely to open up that email. So that's why it's important to make sure that whenever you use email as a method of communication, make sure it's coming from names that people recognize and that the subject lines make sense. And the thing about email is that it is so cheap and so easy to do that even if you have a low response rate, you can still consider it successful. We know that you're not going to get 100% of your students to open any particular email, but the few that do, if it changes their behavior, then it's worth the time that you spend on it. Some rules of thumb for email are: don't bury a lot of text or images, text in your images and PDFs and put those into an email. That can be an accessibility nightmare for people who are using screen readers and things like that. So you always want to make sure that you have a plain text version or just the text version of what your image says in the email for those people to make sure that they can access the information just like everybody else. And don't forget about the mobile version. So people get caught up sometimes. We sit at our computers and we design an email and we have it looking exactly like we want it to look. And then you send it, open it up on a phone, and it's nightmarish. It's impossible to read, or the content is in columns for some reason and you can't navigate columns on your phone. So you have to think about the mobile version of your email and know that whatever it looks like on your desktop isn't necessarily what it's going to look like for someone who's opening it on a smaller device. Keep it simple. If your email is long, if there's an essay that's 2,000 words, if there are tons of images that take a long time to load, that's really going to cut down on the chances that somebody's going to read your email and figure out what you want from them and respond to it. And that also goes for calls to action. Make sure that it's super obvious what you want them to do. You want them to call you to set up an appointment. You want them to click a link and download a PDF. You want them to fill out a form. Make sure that whatever you want them to do is super apparent in your email. And then finally, consider using an email service if you're not already doing that. I have a freelance client or a side client who is really scared to launch his email plan right now because he had a few years ago, he actually accidentally did the thing where he was meaning to BCC a couple thousand customers, and instead he sent the email and copied a couple thousand people. People got really angry about it. And, so he's been scared ever since then to try to do email marketing. So we're setting him up with MailChimp. And that's one, it's free up to 2,000 users and a certain number of sends per month. But the pricing is really reasonable beyond that. But the benefit of using something like that is, one, it's not going to let you accidentally carbon copy a million people and them have each other's email address. It builds in some of those foolproof things to keep you from messing up. There are mobile optimized templates in those. They look great on small screens. They manage duplicate addresses and personalization and unsubscribe so that you don't have to worry about managing any of that manually. And they can also track how people read and interact with your email. Different services give different levels of data on each email that you send, but it's really interesting to look at an email and see, okay, 8 people clicked this link and 20 people clicked this link. So you can tell what's working and what's not working. And some, like I said, some good platforms are MailChimp, and then Constant Contact is a paid version that we use at TC sometimes, and it also does the exact same things and does great stuff. So that is the gist of what I wanted to go over today. But if anybody has any comments or questions or suggestions of things that you're using that are working, I'd love to hear it.
One of the things that I've been also always asked about is about when you boost a post on Facebook, what kind of, report do you get back? And also, how are you able to kind of segment that just for your service areas? I know we all have service areas that we kind of serve. And so if you're able to kind of boost your post and just connect to your service area, that's one way of kind of targeting audiences. Is that correct, Tracy?
Yeah, there are 2 ways that you can go about Facebook advertising. The boosting is the simplest thing to do. So if you've never done it before and you're kind of dipping your toes in, I recommend trying it. When you boost a post, you have some options like just a few general options, like you can change the age range. You can choose, I believe that you can choose in a boost, like if you want to do Texarkana plus a 25-mile radius. And then just people who like your page, you can choose that. So you have a few super basic options when you boost. Now, if you want to go into create an ad account and create a Facebook ad, if you have a service area that's more complicated than just a radius, a geographic radius, you can go into your ad account and actually create audiences of people who live in certain zip codes, or you can get pretty detailed with how you define the geographic boundaries of where you want your post to show.
Okay. I know those are some of the kind of things that we're all starting to do. I know there's also a couple of questions, or there have been in the past, I've been hearing about websites. So, how often should we be updating our website with content information for our students to be able to see? And how is it a way to make sure that what you're putting on your website can also be viewed mobilely on their mobile devices?
So most websites these days, if you have a new website made, it's going to be mobile friendly. It's going to be responsive to mobile screens. So the most important thing you can do when you have information is to actually put it on your website as text and as images, and not link Word documents, not link PDFs or anything like that. Just put the actual information on the actual website, because then when they view it on their mobile device, it's going to resize the screen properly and they'll be able to read the content.
Okay.
If you've ever tried to read like a PDF with columns of text on a phone, it can get exhausting to try to figure out where, to navigate. So that's just a good rule of thumb. As far as how often to update, it's how often you need to update. If you have a lot of information, and you're putting out content daily, that's great. If you only have changes every week or two, just do it, keep it consistent, and make it accessible. That's what's probably the most important.
Okay. We have a question from Elizabeth Harris who wants to know, can you repeat the information for the free texting platforms?
Yeah, let me go back and look at those. And again, I have not used them personally, but there is a Google Messages platform that allow you to create a phone number with a area code that you want, and then to text. And then there's textfree.us, which from the reviews that I read, it's ad supported, so it's a lot of ads to weed through unless you want to pay for the paid version. But it would be a good way to kind of get in there and try it out.
And I know some of us have also kind of readjusted some of our budgets to kind of cover maybe additional information if you're, having to do a little bit more on the technology side and marketing side than you originally had planned because of going from working in person to being remote. So.
Yeah, for sure. We've pulled back at TC a lot of our print ads for some of those publications that kind of sit around on doctor's office, waiting room tables and stuff because people just aren't out there consuming that content.
Right.
I do have people a lot of times ask me, how much should I spend on a Facebook ad campaign? My answer is usually you can spend $5 or $5,000 or anywhere in between. But a good rule of thumb that I like to tell people who are starting out and doing this for the first time is think about how much you would spend on a print ad in a monthly publication or for 1 month of a billboard, and take that amount and put it on a digital campaign. And then you can kind of see how the results compare to what you get from, the other media.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Tracy before? Oh, here's another one. Someone else is making a comment. Remind.com is a great free texting service too if your program is smaller. If you go over a certain number, what does it say? Certain number of students on the Remind.com, you do have to pay, but it might be covered by your whole school if multiple departments are going to use it, which is another question. A comment rather. That's a good comment. Anika Whitmore, I think. What I was going to say was, we kind of go on our EOC program. We do a lot of partnerships with our marketing department at the college to kind of cut costs on our budget. So, we may go half and half. And when I submit the budget to the Department of Ed, I clearly explicit that like we're going to cover such and such, and our school is going to cover for this amount of time. So that's another avenue to be able to kind of share cost on doing things.
Well, you
Great
did mention
information.
geofencing.
Yeah.
I will say this
Just
about.
really fast. And I know there's
I'll say
other
this.
things besides geofencing. I think Google has something now too. But if you could just go over geofencing really quickly for all of us, that'd be great.
Yeah. So one of the things that you can do with geofencing is, target high traffic locations. In the past, we've done an employment office. We've done employers where we know that people are making low wages. We've done, social services offices to try to target those people to get them to come to college. But right now we know they're not going places for the most part. Things are kind of starting to open back up, but the crowds are just not flocking to physical locations like they were. So you can, if you have a geofence vendor, and I can recommend a great one for community colleges, you can geofence people's home addresses. So if you have a list of people that are your target, maybe you've purchased a list or you've cultivated it, you can fence their households so that if they're using devices in their households, whatever device they're using, they're going to be served ads from you. So that's a really cool thing that you can do beyond just geofencing, like an event or, a physical like store or something like that.
Cool beans, Tracy. Megan Fonda says this, we did a Snapchat filter and ad during enrollment season, and it was a hit. You can also set up geofencing for the filter, which is awesome. I know you do Snapchat too, Tracy. Don't we do?
Yeah, we've done some
Thank you, Megan.
filters for events like graduation and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah, this is good. Okay. All right. So people are definitely using social media, and it's just another avenue to kind of, connect. And we do know we have different demographic students. For some, social media is just out of the question. But for some of our population, it's some way that we can use to kind of help them virtually. So if there's no other questions for Tracy, I'm going to let her go on, and we're going to go ahead and kind of move on with our conversation. Tracy, thank you so much. seen Tracy in 2 months because I'm all the way in LA and she's all the way in Texas, but it's sure good to hear your
Thanks,
voice.
Lee.
Yeah.
You too. Y'all have a great day.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, so we're gonna keep it rolling here. Again, use the comment box, write your questions down, unmute yourself, whatever is good to kind of get the conversation started. This is really good. Our next presenter is also from Texarkana College, and we're gonna rotate it around. But Taniqua Martin is just someone who has taken on so much at our school in our EOC program. And one of the roles that she does is she really assists with playing and manipulating with our data to be able to communicate with our students, but to also provide us with target populations of people to hit. And so when you're able to kind of use different populations, it's all about the marketing, but it's also about how do we connect. And so I think right now, Taniqua will chime in with this. I think right now we're working with our 19 and 20 people, but we're also using some other people from 18 and 19 who we may have had fill out an intake form, but then that's all we kind of did. And so reconnecting with them, making sure that they kind of stay into the loop. And there's other ways that you can use Bloomin' and Access to be able to communicate kind of with what Tracy was talking about in terms of messaging. So without any further ado, we're gonna let Taniqua go, and then as soon as Taniqua goes, we'll kind of ponder it, write our questions down, and we'll move Oscar in. He'll talk about this other unique platform we have, and then we'll have a question and answer with all of us together. All right, so Taniqua, it's yours.
All right. Well, again, my name is Taniqua Martin here at Texarkana College. So it's great to be with you all today. As Lee was saying, we utilize a lot of reports in Bloomin' just throughout the year, just to target different populations and everything. And I think we've been using it probably even more now with everything that's going on. Just a small pipeline of new participants coming in. And so we're just trying to figure out how we can, throw our energy into something that's going to actually bring us in students. So a lot of that has been utilizing our database of students that we've worked with in the past. I know many of you have been around much longer than us. So we're actually, as we target students, we're targeting our entire database. So we started in 2016. So when we're sending out some of our bulk emailing and targeting students, we're doing the 16-17 year up until now. And a big part of that, we've really been using Bloomin's bulk emailing. Now, when we initially started using this, we ran into the trouble of the emails, kind of looking like spam coming into students. But we've worked with our IT department quite a bit to create, HTML files and things like that to make those look a little bit better and really pop out to students. But the biggest part has been specifically targeting certain students with just specific messages in emails instead of, we give out a weekly email that goes out to everyone with just updates and things like that on things that we feel like they need to know, upcoming workshops and that sort of thing. But we'll also pull those, if we're targeting post-secondary students from 2 years ago, for instance. So if we were looking at the 17-18, 18-19 year, most of our students go to 2-year schools. So they're getting ready to move on to a 4-year. So we target those students, we pull those reports and target those post-secondary students with transfer information. Have you gotten your transcripts? Here, for students that are going to TC, we have the opportunity to get those fees on those transcripts waived for them. So we target them with specific messaging to what we think they're about to be doing. And a lot of times they don't know that, they could use us as a service, but once we reach out to them about little things like that, then we're able to pick up some things there. Something else that we've been doing here recently, so students that we helped get enrolled in the last award year. So most of them are in school, don't really think they need our help with anything right now, but we're reaching out to them with targeted emails, for instance, about the CARES Act. We sent that out on Monday and our phones and emails were just absolutely blowing up. But that was just a target at those specific students that were in school already, that we knew had been hit by everything that's going on. Another list. So with everything that's changed now, the number of, people who have lost their jobs and all of that, we have so many students in our system who maybe didn't complete a FAFSA application in the past just because they didn't feel that they would qualify. Maybe those are our first gen or our students that fall into the other category. So we're going into Blooming, pulling out those specific list of those students who didn't file a FAFSA, trying to reach out to them just because their situations have probably changed. They may now be dislocated workers. And again, just sending out targeted emails. And when I say emails, we create call lists as well. But you all know with our population, emails change. I mean, phone numbers change a lot more than emails. So we still try to make those calls, but this is just specifically the email campaign. But again, the FAFSAs, two lists that have come in real handy for us here over the last month or so is targeting reports for our traditional age students who left the area to go off to college. So what we're finding is a lot of the high school seniors that we've been working with over the last 6 months or so, they're making decisions to stay closer to home now. Maybe attend here locally and not go off just because they're trying to wait and see what happens. And so we're kind of thinking that might be the same with some of those that went off last year that are your high school freshmen or sophomores that might be looking to come back home, go to school here locally at a 2-year for a year to kind of see what happens. So specifically targeting those students to see if there's been changes or if there's anything that we can help them with. And the other is our older students. So when this, all came down, our older students don't have a lot of experience with technology, with online classes. So we really did a really good job at the beginning of calling on those students. And the conversation really started with, how's it going? How's your transition going? And in that, we were able to pull out, additional services that we might be able to help them with, the upcoming financial aid application. So that was a really good list that we were able to pull, but we're just doing everything we can to utilize those different reports that Bloomin allows us to pull there. So if we're, just pulling by age, we're pulling by year. We're also looking at workshops that we've done in the past. So we're able to pull those workshop lists. Who's been there? What did we assist them with? What activities we assisted them with? And able to send out targeted emails or creating a call list to go after those specific students just based on the things that they needed assistance with in the past. And some of what we really try to do when we send out these messages, anytime we can talk about money is always kind of a draw to pull students in. But lately it's been, every single email, regardless of what we're targeting those students about, everyone has been about, we've included food and emergency assistance because that's been a big thing. Unemployment. So one of the ways, as we target some of these students, we're, offering assistance to help them with their unemployment benefits. And that's opening the door to being able to help them with some other things. Again, transfer assistance, things like that, those that are looking to come back home. But anything that we think that specific population might be dealing with, we put it out there in these bulk emails. Again, they get one weekly. And then if there's something else that's kind of going on, then we're sending that out to those different groups, trying not to overwhelm them. But most students are now checking emails more than they ever have been. So we're, again, just utilizing those lists as much as possible. Every week, maybe there's a different list, something else we think about as a way that we can reach out and pull those post-secondary students back in, or those students who did a financial aid application, admissions application a year ago, but for whatever reason didn't enroll, reaching out to them with a targeted email, just encouraging them is, we know everybody has a lot going on right now. School might not be at the top of their list, but with a, hiring pool that's steadily growing, targeted messages to them, just talking about, a degree or credential being a great way to kind of set them apart in this growing hiring pool. So to try to get those that for whatever reason didn't enroll before in right now. So yeah, I really encourage you to really dive into your database, whichever one you may be using, and just start pulling any type of list you can, because it really has done a great job for us to keep us busy. Keep a call list on our desk. I like to do what I call a 10 by 10, which is 10 calls by 10 a.m. And those lists have really kept me busy in trying to do that. Not only that, I try to go off of a setting 2 appointments a day for some time in the future. And those lists have allowed me to do that. Now, we're not getting 100 students in a week or anything like that, but it's really helping to keep us busy and keep the conversations going with our students. So.
See, now remember, if you were on a couple of weeks ago on the COE call, we had talked about how much teamwork is. And so this is a prime example of what teamwork looks like, because you have someone like Taniqua who enjoys the data and pulling it out and kind of constructing lists and kind of figuring out where you can target people. And she then is able to kind of disperse that out to a team. In order for us, again, to be able to be successful in all of this, regardless of COVID, it really involves picking up on people's strengths and their weaknesses, and kind of feeding off of that to be able to make yourself a team. And I'm always unapologetic about saying this publicly about the team that we have at our EOC program at TC. And I know there's other programs out there that just have awesome teams. So every now and then, sometimes you just have to pat the team, each other on the back, for just being so great at what you do. So, and so we're transitioning over, and we'll get all the other questions after we get to Oscar. So we're talking about teamwork right now. And so when we sent out the email a week ago or 10 days ago, Oscar was the first person who hit me up. He's like, hey guys, there's this application called Slack that can kind of connect us all collectively together in a teamwork interface. And so I'm going to go ahead and let him just come in his own way. We do have a short YouTube video that I think we're going to play first. And then Oscar, after that, you're free to just kind of jump in. So I'm going to let Chad play that, and then we'll go from there, and then we'll have our discussion. So please be thinking about your questions. Nothing's off limits today. All right.
Welcome to Slack. Slack is a new kind of messaging for teams, bringing all your communication together in one simple place and integrating with the tools you already use. What's different about Slack is that team conversations are organized into channels. You can create channels for departments, projects, office locations, anything you like. Public channels are open, so anyone on your team can pop in to see what's going on and join the conversation. Nice. Great job, everyone. It's not just about messaging, though. You can also share files, images, PDFs, documents, spreadsheets. Look, I've got them right here. You just simply drag and drop them into the right channel, like that. You and your colleagues can add comments along with the document, making collaboration more contextual, transparent, and efficient. If you have a project that's confidential, you can create a private channel. Only the people you invite to the channel will be able to join. And if you need to reach someone directly, you can send them a direct message. It's totally private and secure. You can also send a message to a group of people. It's a great way to communicate with your teammates in a short-term, lightweight sort of way. Oh, this should be good. By the way, if you're offline in another application or just doing research, Slack can notify you when an item needs your attention. Let me get right on this. Everything you post on Slack is searchable. Messages, notifications, files, even the content within those files. Oh, see, there it is. Now, about those integrations I mentioned earlier. Well, with Slack, you can plug in many of the tools and services you already use and have notifications from those systems appear in whatever channels you choose. Oh, thanks, I think. Best of all, Slack works the way you work. So if you're on the go, you can start a conversation on your desktop and pick it up on our mobile device. Everything's in sync. More productive, more transparent, more efficient, and no more email. That's Slack.
I think, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so that's Slack. Let me give you a little background. We've been using Slack at Penn State's Talent Search and Educational Opportunity Center, I think, for about 2 years. We have 15 staff scattered throughout the state of Pennsylvania. And this feature, I find it very convenient, quick, informal. And let me throw out there, when it comes to social media and technology, I'm below novice. So the Slack, when I use it, I find it very helpful in communicating with our staff about any topic, any question. As they mentioned, you can create different channels. But when I was I live in Philadelphia, work in Reading, and I was sitting down figuring out, okay, how can I reach my clients, my participants, my partners in the community now that I'm in Philly? And I was wondering, what are my other EOC counterparts going through? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? And I wanted some means to communicate with them. And since I've been using Slack for about 2 years, I thought that was a good medium to use. Because one of the things I miss now is not being able to go to conferences and not talking to my EOC folks. Because when I go there and talk to my EOC folks, we share a lot of ideas, we talk, and it's informal. And that's the part I miss, and that's what I want to try to create using Slack. And we have a lot of EOC folks out there throughout the United States, and I want to be able to tap into their resources, share ideas, share best practices, ask questions, share successes, commiserate, or anything. And I think Slack is a good way to do it. Now, I apologize for not being totally prepared, but I didn't know I had 15 minutes to present. But what I want to ask the folks is, if you're interested in creating a communication channel, informal, where you can do it group, individual, or on specific, or maybe outreach, maybe best practices, working with partners in your area, contact me so we can talk about creating this Slack channel and how many folks will be interested. There is a cost. There's the free component. There's a cost to it. So I want to find out how many people will be interested in creating this little, what I think is an informal way to communicate EOC activities among ourselves. So that's it. I want to be able to communicate with everyone and get their feedback, get the collective mind surge going.
Good. This is good. So he's kind of going to be over our communication, group communication together collectively on that platform. If anybody, if you're interested in joining, see, you nominate yourself, but we're happy. We're happy.
I'll do it.
We're happy for your energy.
Yeah, I'll do it, but I'm going to rely on. We have a social media person, Kelly Kanaj.
Mm-hmm.
She's great. We have Melissa Walker, who's the director of Talent Trio Training Academy and associate director of Penn State's Talent Search and EOC. I rely on them. Like I told you, I'm a novice when it comes to technology. So people, I'm going to put down my information, contact me, and I'll put it all together. I'm going to rely on my staff or my coworkers to help me out with this.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah,
Okay.
and it could also be something that you may want to use for your individual program, but I know that we could collectively communicate together. Yeah. All right.
Okay. And thank you for the time.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
All right, this is what these are for. So we're exactly on time, a little bit early actually. And so the next couple of 30 or so minutes, we're just gonna open up the floor for comments. And we thank Taniqua and Oscar for wonderful presentations today. We got a comment about, if your institution has access to the National Student Clearinghouse, it can help you see where your current and past participants are like, who has enrolled, graduated, dropped out, etc. And so that's another suggestion of ways to kind of get people. And then in Minneapolis College EOC, we have sent emails regarding FAFSA renewal to our active track and active participants through student access last month. And we're pre-tracking them, and we make phone calls to individual students, tracking them through National Student Clearinghouse. So there's a clearinghouse again as a way to kind of track your students and kind of see where they are, to see if it's, able to kind of reconnect for additional services. So those are two good points. And what I'm going to do is it's opened up now. So if anybody has some burning questions that they want to figure out, I will tell you that next time we meet on the 21st, one of the topics that we are going to discuss is how to make a remote, working remotely manual. So what are some of the things that you would put in a manual in case the Department of Ed asks us for a manual in terms of what have we been doing working remotely? Ashley Jones from Paris Junior College is going to present on that. And that was one of the things that she almost instantaneously did for her program, was made a manual for working remotely and how that looks. And so she's going to share that with us on the 21st. But if you have questions about that today, we can definitely start the dialogue on that or anything else. Okay, so here's a question. How is everybody's numbers looking so far? Have you made the 50% mark? Are you at the 60% mark? Where are you kind of like, if we had to report our numbers today for an interim report, where would you be? And so if you just kind of put that in the comments, if everybody's kind of in the comment section, you can kind of see where people are kind of commenting in, and you can just type the message. Absolutely. Whatever other topics that you want to discuss, please send them to us. We're getting someone say, okay, EOC at South Seattle College is at 75%. Some are at 936, and they need 1,300, so 72%. Some are at 75%. EOC is at 60%. Okay. 64% in Maine for Karen, 65% in Idaho State University, EOC. Yeah, okay. More messages are coming in. Connects at 59%, 60% anticipating. Okay, we're at 60% anticipating that we will get to at least 85% by the end of the grant year. Okay, okay. All right. Someone had also sent us an email about possibly holding an EOC workshop for the upcoming grant writing competition. And so we're still working through that to kind of figure out who can kind of come and provide us information for that. But we did get your email, and we are hearing you about that. So someone did have information that they wanted to hear about that. DC's at 60%. You're interested in that too? Okay. All right. Is there anything else in terms of best practices that you kind of want to hear from other people? The grant writers, let's divide into sections so we can attend the sections we need help with. Okay, it's a good idea, Karen. Very good idea. And so the grant writing workshop's not coming in the 21st. That's something that we're having to work through to kind of get a presenter. And so that will be something that we'll do just on the grant writing. But we are trying to find somebody. Karen, you may want to help us out on that one. But okay, so we're still looking for somebody, but we that's another thing. When I originally had started coming on NEOCA back in February, these are one of the things that we kind of talked about that we wanted to institute. So these dialogues are just good for our programs to talk, and I think it's going to be something that we're going to institute even moving forward, even after we kind of get back to our new norm, even after COVID. So we're not just meeting, at our conference every year, which is a good time to see people face to face, but having these conversations all year, I think, are also beneficial. So Mateo, do you have anything you want to discuss? Because I
want to thank all of our presenters, of course, right away, and I look forward to other people stepping forward. I know one that I heard right now was about grant writing. We have to be careful about that because we can't do that during working hours. I think we can give information about it, like we've gone in the past with the Department of Ed that gives that information, and hopefully COE will also be putting something out. But yes, I think we have different people within the organization. You mentioned Karen. There's some other folks that I think would be willing to step forward and give us some background information on how to prepare for the next competition.
Right. Okay, so we have a couple of advertisements. I mean, we don't want to hold anybody, so if we want to move forward, that's fine too. Chad, go ahead and put those next slides up in regards to the scholarship. Okay,
Please, yes.
so yeah, so this is the scholarship. We still have awards available. If you are an NEOCA Institute member, you are eligible to have one of your participants apply for this scholarship. The deadline is May 29th. All the information is available there. We can also send you a flyer. We do have the flyer available for that. So just either email me or it's also on our website. It's also definitely on our website for information about the scholarship. We also, again, are going to have another best practices, and that one's going to be more so geared with how do we fundamentally as professionals work remotely. And so that's why Ashley's going to kind of start our conversation off about how to make a manual for working remotely and what that kind of looks like of information that we want to put in there. So we do have policies and procedures in place for each other in terms of working remotely. So that's a conversation. If anybody's interested in joining NEOCA, this is not a plug for membership, but it kind of sort of is because membership does have benefits. And one of those membership benefits are that you are eligible to have a qualified person apply for the NEOCA scholarship. And so this is allowable expense within your budget because it's an EOC program institutional membership. And so you put that in your budget every year to be a part of the association. And so contact information is down there for Tanya Harris. If you have questions about membership or if you would like to join, you can also visit the NEOCA website. And yeah, I think we're if that's all we got here, I think that's kind of the agenda we have, Mateo. So
Okay.
I'm
Well,
good if you're okay.
yeah. Well, Lee, on behalf of all of us that are listening today, I want to thank you and all the presenters. It was some good information that's timely needed. And I look forward to our next one. And I want each one of our members that are listening to please find some time to relax. I know we're in some challenging times right now. Someday, not knowing when it will be over, it'll change. But I look forward to us to meeting someday in a face to face, as most of us like to do. And so this time I'll give you an elbow bump there on the on the screen. And please enjoy the evening.
All
Thank you, Leo,
right.
again.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you on the 21st.
Bye.
All right.